On First at 9 this Wednesday, the 26th of November 2025. Overflow. Authorities issue flood warnings as 51 reservoirs reach capacity due to incessant rains. Rainfall expected to intensify in the coming hours. Target in sight. Sri Lanka set to end the year with the highest foreign reserves since the crisis, says the central bank governor. Defamation attempt. Minister Sunil Hadunnetti lodges a complaint with the CID, claiming controversial audio clips circulating on social media has been doctored. Seal of approval. UNP leader, former President Ranil Wickremesinghe greenlights reunification talks with the SJP.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, you're joining First at 9 on Sri Lanka's premium news provider, Derana News Channel. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. We begin with your top story this evening. Adverse weather continues to wreak havoc across the island with 25 major reservoirs and 26 medium-sized reservoirs now overflowing. Ampara district remains the hardest hit by the persistent rains, while the irrigation department warns of potential flooding along 3 river basins. The Department of Meteorology forecasts the low-pressure system above the island to intensify into a depression within the next few hours, further intensifying the prevailing rains. Meanwhile, the Disaster Management Centre announced that the lower Kadugannava area on the Colombo-Kandy road has been closed until further notice as landslide warnings were reissued due to heavy rains.
Heavy rains lashed across the country in recent days, prompted by the low-pressure area positioned over the South Andaman Islands in the southwest Bay of Bengal, coupled with another low-pressure area above the south of Sri Lanka. The highest rainfall in the past 24 hours of 92.5 millimeters was recorded from Lahugala in Ampara. The Department of Irrigation says 25 major reservoirs and 26 medium-scale reservoirs are overflowing owing to the heavy rains. Similarly, rivers Kalu, Ging, Nilwala and Mahavali as well as Kumbukkanoya and Yanoya have also reached spill levels, raising the possibility of floods in nearby areas. Meanwhile, the Irrigation Department issued a red flood warning for the localities downstream of Galloya as Senanayaka Samudraya in Inginiagala, Ampara has reached capacity due to heavy rainfall received in the upper and middle catchment areas of the Galloya Basin. Ampara district continues to remain the most affected by heavy flooding, with farmland and low-lying areas being submerged. The Ampara district secretary disclosed that Ampara-Inginiagala main road will remain closed from 6 p.m. this evening until 6 a.m. tomorrow in light of flood warnings. Patiklo district too was severely impacted by incessant rains and heavy flooding. With incessant rains pouring down on the central hill, several roads were inundated. Following a minor landslide on the railway line between Nanuoya and Great Western, the Railway Department announced that the Nanuoya-Badula night mail will be restricted from Nanuoya to Colombo Fort from today until further notice. Heavy downpours pelting Polonnaruwa district for the past 3 days have led to the inundation of several acres of land in Kirimatiya, Palliyagodalla and Ilukpitiya. In light of several landslides across the country, the National Building Research Organisation has issued landslide warnings to 12 districts. Although the low-pressure area above the Andaman Islands is currently moving away from the islands, the low-pressure area to the south of Sri Lanka is continuing to develop. The Department of Meteorology forecasts that the system will develop into a depression within the next 24 hours. Accordingly, rainfall is expected to increase tomorrow. The Met Department forecasts that prevailing rains may continue until the 30th of November.
ඔබේ සම හඳුනාගෙන ඖෂධීය ශාකසාරමේ forever face wash එකක් භාවිතා කරන්න.
අප වෙනුවෙන් කැපවූ ලංකාවේ අපේ අංක 1 ජාලය ඩයලොග්. දවටනේ නියම මිල සඳහන් ස්විස් ටෙක් නිෂ්පාදන මිලදී ගන්න. ස්විස් ටෙක් ගන්න ඕන හොඳම තීරණය.
Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe says Sri Lanka's foreign reserves will reach a post-crisis high by the end of this year, supported by strong inflows from multilateral agencies in December. Joining the monetary policy briefing today, Governor Veerasinghe also stated that the demand for vehicle imports is gradually declining. Meanwhile, the Monetary Policy Board has decided to keep the overnight policy rate unchanged, expecting current rates to guide inflation toward the target level.
The Monetary Policy Board decided to keep the policy interest rate, overnight policy rate, at the current level of 7.75%. Also, the margins to form the standing deposit facility and lending facility will also be unchanged at 50 basis points. The board is of the view that current monetary policy stance will support steering inflation towards the target of 5%. Headline inflation continued to accelerate in October for the third consecutive month. The inflation is projected to rise more gradually than projected earlier and more towards the target by second half of next year. Core inflation, which measures the demand pressure in the economy, is also expected to accelerate but at a moderate pace as demand in the economy is gradually strengthening. Medium-term inflation expectations remain well anchored around the targeted level of 5%. On the growth side, we see that leading economic indicators suggest that growth momentum continues periods. On the external sector, we have seen imports have risen recently and that is contributing to widening of trade deficit.
potential growth එක
The monetary policy stance was taken, taking potential economic growth into account. This is why we have decided to keep interest rates stable without tightening them. One of the key ways the central bank contributed to economic growth, 5% in 2024 and nearly 5% this year, was by maintaining both price stability and monetary stability. Regarding reserve management, there is an IMF-mandated gross official reserve target for Sri Lanka and we are confident of achieving it. We initially saw an increase in vehicle imports following the lifting of restrictions. However, we now observe a decline in the opening of LCs. Compared to July and August, this decline is significant in November and December, and vehicle prices are also gradually decreasing during the same period. When the fifth tranche of the IMF program is approved on December 15th, Sri Lanka will receive approximately $340 million. We have also signed an agreement with the Asian Development Bank, which will release around $370 million next month. Additionally, we expect further funds from the World Bank, bringing the government's total inflows in December to about $750 million. With these inflows, we will end the year with the highest level of gross official reserves recorded in Sri Lanka since the economic crisis. We are therefore confident in comfortably achieving the year-end foreign reserve target.
We see the new budget have a major spending commitment. Governor, how confident is the central bank that the fiscal policy will not have any pressure or any impact on the independence of the monetary policy?
To look at this year, obviously fiscal performance has been much better than any year in the history. The revenue targets so much above what was announced. Primary surplus is going to be much above what was announced. I think budget speech published the numbers. The budget deficit is also within the parameters that agreed with the IMF, consistent with the sustained analysis. So that's, I think, a good fiscal consolidation and continuation of that will certainly help the monetary policy implementation as well.
Energy Minister Kumara Jayakodi says the government will seek the consent of Manor Island residents before initiating any new power plant projects in addition to the wind farms already under construction. The minister made these remarks at a press briefing in Kilinochchi yesterday.
Residents of Manor have been protesting proposed wind power projects in the area for an extended period. Responding to these concerns, the cabinet recently decided not to proceed with any new wind power development beyond the projects already underway on Manor Island. Speaking at a press conference in Kilinochchi yesterday, Energy Minister Kumara Jayakodi reaffirmed the government's commitment to addressing community concerns in future energy developments.
A 20 megawatt power plant project has already been launched on Manor Island. It is currently progressing well and will be completed by next month. Additionally, preliminary work has begun for a 50 megawatt plant and both projects are continuing without interruption. We have informed local residents and organizations that if we are to initiate further projects, it will be in consultation with them and pursuant to their wishes. That only applies to that island. Other projects will proceed as usual. Agreements have been signed for 2 more projects with a combined capacity of 70 megawatts. Work is underway for those projects. Once these power plants are operational, our spending on petroleum will reduce significantly. These projects will also generate considerable tax revenue. Those revenues will be returned to the people through programs like Aswasuma and will also support regional development. Minister Sunil Handunnetti today lodged a complaint with the Criminal Investigation Department requesting an investigation into the circulation of a voice recording attributed to him on social media. He claims that a voice message he sent regarding the confiscation of a stock of rice imported by a non-government entity without an import license had been doctored.
An audio clip purportedly of Industry and Entrepreneurship Development Minister Sunil Handunnetti is currently circulating on social media.
Good morning. Mangarake bistarey wada damma. Metana me license mukut nathuwa genala thiyena mara ඒ ටික නම් බේර ගන්න පුළුවන්. මේ 8.4 million මේ custom duty එක මොකද කරන්නේ? ඒක අපිට බේරන්න ක්‍රමයක් නැහැ නේද? ඒක බේරගන්නේ කොහොමද?
Against a backdrop of a growing social debate surrounding the audio clip, views were expressed both on political platforms and in Parliament.
If there is no license, that is illegal. There's no point discussing it further. It doesn't matter whether the audio has been altered in any way. We must remind ourselves that if there is no license, it is illegal in itself. When the goods should have been fined or confiscated, why did the minister call and say he would take care of the missing license? Then he asked what can be done about the 8.4 million duty. It can be misinterpreted as him asking for a commission, perhaps 5 million for himself. When listening to this conversation, it seems the Customs Department, which falls under the purview of the President, has become an institution that releases containers at will. A very person who was accused of releasing 309 containers without inspection has now been promoted to Director General and his service has been extended by 6 months. Usually the government party should be the one with the most funds. But how did a party that criticized the government for 76 years become the party with the highest funds? It is because of these things. This is what they were doing in the past as well.
Meanwhile, Minister Sunil Handunnetti today lodged a complaint with the Criminal Investigation Department requesting an investigation into the alleged alteration of the audio clip.
Beyond going to the CID, I will also file a defamation case. An individual informed me about the release of 5 containers of rice. He said that since they could not be released, the government should take them and distribute them to the public. When I inquired from customs, they said it could not be done because it was not imported under an import license. I explained this to the individual and said the containers would have to be confiscated first and then distributed. However, the customs demurrage of 8.4 million would still have to be paid. That is all I explained. I do not know what this individual intended. Maybe he planned to defame me. I lodged a complaint with the CID requesting an investigation into the matter. An investigation must also be carried out into the alteration of the audio clip and the attempt to tarnish my reputation.
Assets valued at approximately 200 million rupees owned by large-scale drug trafficker Dehibale Malli were seized today by the Illegal Assets Investigation Division. The confiscated property include 5 multi-day fishing trawlers and a luxury residence.
The Illegal Assets Investigation Division of the Criminal Investigation Department has uncovered property believed to have been purchased with illicit funds by Shehan Satsara, also known as Dehibale Malli, a large-scale drug trafficker currently hiding overseas. Following intelligence information, a CID team inspected the Dikwala Fisheries Harbour today, where they identified 5 fishing trawlers owned by the suspect, which were later listed as prohibited property. Police estimate their collective value at around 200 million rupees. Investigating officers also seized a luxury house and a land worth nearly 50 million rupees, located near the Dikwala Divisional Secretariat. In a separate development, the main suspect in the murder of the brother-in-law of underworld figure Karandaniya Sudda, who served as the chairman of the Ambalangura Modara Devalaya Committee, was arrested by the Gold District Crime Division yesterday in Sellakataragama, along with another individual who sheltered the suspect. The suspect has reportedly confessed that he carried out the killing as revenge for the murder of his father, allegedly committed by Karandaniya Sudda. Police disclosed that the suspect admitted to driving the vehicle used to ram the motorcycle ridden by the victim and later abandoning it in Egoravela, Karandaniya. A revolver believed to have been used in the crime was recovered today from his home in Mitiagoda. The suspect is being questioned under 7-day detention order.
Indian Navy aircraft carrier INS Vikrant, the first to be built in India, arrived at the port of Colombo today to join the Sri Lanka Navy's forthcoming International Fleet Review 2025. The Sri Lanka Navy is conducting its fleet review as part of its 75th anniversary celebrations and will bring together ships from several countries, reflecting Colombo's ambition to underscore its growing role in regional maritime diplomacy. INS Vikrant, commissioned in 2022 as India's first fully indigenous aircraft carrier, represents a major milestone for the Indian Navy. Later in the evening, Indian Navy's stealth frigate INS Udaygiri also arrived in Colombo.
30% discount on Apico Farm and Spring mattresses, available at Apico Supercenter and Apico Daily.
Musa Phoenix Natal Fiesta, November 13 සිට 16 දක්වා අනුරාධපුර ස්පුට්නික් ක්‍රීඩා පිටියේදී.
Welcome back to First at 9. General Secretary of the United National Party, Thalathathu Koral, says that opposition leader Sajith Premadasa has consented to leadership-level discussions on the reunification of the UNP and SJB. Accordingly, UNP leader, former President Ranil Wickremesinghe, has appointed a 3-member committee to lead reunification talks.
Ranil Wickremesinghe informed the management committee today that Samagi Jana Balawega leader Sajith Premadasa is ready for leadership-level discussions regarding the UNP and SJB working together in future. The unanimous stance of the management committee was that members of the two parties must be unified. Accordingly, Ranil Wickremesinghe appointed a committee comprising UNP Deputy Leader Ruwan Wijewardena, National Organizer Sagala Ratnayaka and myself as the General Secretary, and tasked us with reporting the progress of discussions at the session of the committee.
ප්‍රගතිය ඊළඟ සාකච්ඡා වාරයේදී සාකච්ඡා කිරීමට අවශ්‍ය කටයුතු කරන ලෙස දැනුවත් කරා.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa criticizes the government for setting Sri Lanka's expenditure on education at 2% of GDP, despite an earlier pledge to increase it up to 6%. Meanwhile, the debate on the expenditure heads of the Ministries of Fisheries, Science and Technology and Digital Economy was held today in Parliament.
The Prime Minister issued an explanation about the budgetary allocation for education. She claims that she is not of the opinion that expenditure on education must be hiked to 6% of GDP. But we know that you, as a member of the Federation of University Teachers Association, campaigned to secure an expenditure corresponding to 6% of GDP. Back then, you even participated in protest launched over the issue, wherein teachers were in the 6% slogan.
I'm thankful that the opposition, including the opposition leader, is talking about the t-shirt I wore during the 2011 to 12 period. I appreciate the attention they have paid. I voiced support for allocating 6% to education back then, and I stand for it today as well. We have shown that we are working toward achieving that 6% benchmark. We have calculated how this allocation should be increased gradually from next year and the subsequent year.
But let me point out, in 2025 the allocation was 1.08%, and for 2026 it is 2%. That corresponds to an increase by 2 decimal points. I'm clad in black today to raise concerns on challenges faced by the fishing community. I intend to bolster their rights. My attire also serves as a symbol of my disapproval of the actions taken by the president-led government. If the fishermen decide to take to the streets, it will not be easy. Controlling the situation will be extremely difficult. Just recently, during a protest, the fishermen outclassed me by eating raw fish, as you may have seen on TV. This shows the depth of their suffering. Once they leave the harbour, those taking off to sea become responsible for themselves and their crew. crews. The boat owners remain at home. When fishermen are out at sea, on certain occasions, skippers are paid hefty sums. These sums are divided among the rest of the crew, and once divided, the crew smuggles narcotic ashore. When the boat reaches the shore, the police immediately visits the boat's owner. Therefore, I urge the Ministry of Defence to detain and question the skipper and the crew. If investigations reveal that the boat owner is at fault, then he should also be arrested. Until then, it is not as if the owner will hide himself. He will still be there.
Dilip
Vedarachi began by talking about fuel subsidies and then ended by requesting a subsidy for trafficking narcotics. This itself is the very problem faced by the Fisheries Ministry. The MP never mentioned that the tender for polycarbonate cards were closed yesterday. Tenders have been called for 15 million polycarbonate cards. Do we really need these cards? If we are really about digitalization, why do we need these cards? Although tenders have been called for 15 million, only 5 million cards will be procured. This decision follows the inability of the current system to fully accept digital IDs. For instance, when a vehicle is stopped for an inspection, a physical card will be necessary to ascertain the driver's identity. Therefore, we will only procure the minimum amount of 5 million. The tender has not been closed. The opening has been extended until mid-December. We will pass a new amendment to revise the total figure to 5 million cards. How is that the tender was issued for 15 million but only 5 million will be procured? That means there is a major mistake in the procurement process. We must investigate the procurement. This cannot be allowed to happen. Shrimp exports have decreased compared to the last, down by 427 metric tons. Crab exports have also fallen by 1,133 metric tons compared to last year. In 2021, Sri Lanka exported 9,930 metric tons of tuna. But in 2025, tuna exports are only 4,700 metric tons. This is a significant decline. Revenue from marine industries have dropped by 800 million rupees. Yet this government came into power promising to develop the country through income generated from marine industries. We always say there are 159 speakers but no workers. It is truly a question whether there are even 159 people who work.
Welcome back to First at 9. The Sri Lanka Ports Authority is expected to provide 5 billion rupees of its profits to the consolidated fund. Following the new government taking office, the Ports Authority has reportedly recorded a post-tax net profit of 39 billion rupees as of October 31st, 2025. This reflects an increase of around 12 billion rupees compared to the previous year. Accordingly, the Ports Authority has decided to provide 5 billion rupees of this amount to the consolidated fund. The Ministry of Ports and Civil Aviation said 2 billion rupees were already debited to the fund in September this year and a further 3 billion rupees are scheduled to be provided in December. The Colombo Bourse closed in positive territory today as a result of price gains in counters such as Hatton National Bank, Colombo Dockyard and Diesel and Motor Engineering. The benchmark All Share Price Index rose 0.11% to close at 23,844.23, while the more liquid S&P Sri Lanka 20 rose 0.20% to end the day at 6,311.3. Market turnover was 3.4 billion rupees. The capital goods sector was the top contributor to market turnover, while the banking sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers, offloading shares worth 279 million rupees. Up next, we have Dinuka Dharmasena from Capital Alliance in our next segment, Economic Outlook.
Inflation accelerated in October with national prices rising to 2.7% year-on-year. Both manufacturing and services activities continue to show expansion during the month. The average weighted prime lending rate rose to 8.35%, while the call money rate remained unchanged at 7.94%. Market liquidity remained in a surplus of approximately 78 billion rupees. Treasury yields were broadly stable, with T-bill auctions oversubscribed nearly 1.9 times. The rupee has depreciated 5.1% against the dollar so far this year. Global crude oil prices declined by over $1 per barrel amid mixed market conditions. At the Colombo Stock Exchange, market trended downward. The SPI declined 2%, while the S&P SL20 fell 1.1%.
That's all for tonight from First at 9. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.